Welcome team. There's a little difference today. Aaron Warburton, CEO of Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Aaron, I want to thank you so much because this podcast I do is to try to help people, inspire people, a lot of sport people, a lot of athletes, a lot of coaches, but CEO of a sporting organisation. I think you're going to take us on a journey with a whole new team of listeners now that are probably in your area, in the corporate world or aspirations of possibly doing what you did. You're a fairly young CEO, you know, like you. So thanks so much for coming on.
Absolute pleasure.
Have you ever listened to the podcast?
I have. I was just saying we, over COVID and sort of pushing through this year, I'm seeing it more and more pop up on my Instagram feed. So
there you go.
Yeah, I'm a listener.
Beautiful. Well, you know what? First of all, listening is a skill that is probably going to come out in your story.
Yeah,
You've listened and learned off a lot of people. So I want to go there. I want to know about your influences. I want to know where it all started. I want to know the journey. I'm sure there's lessons along the way that we can share that'll make a difference to people, which is why I do the podcast. So
that's good. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's start with, by the way, there's a train going past.
Welcome to Belmore.
Welcome to Belmore. We're sitting in Belmore Stadium.
This one hasn't blown its horn though. Normally they give you a little toot as they go past.
It's the team's training. Yeah. Well, I must say, a little slightly off topic, as a child, as a kid, I reckon maybe 12 years old, I used to go and sit down there and watch the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. And here I am sitting in the
amazing
venue.
venue.
And the trains used to go past.
Yeah.
They used to kick goals and go on the train track. So, I remember really good memories coming in here.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to you.
Yeah. That is, it's a beautiful venue, and if the walls could talk, there should be a book written on the memories of Belmore, because everyone I speak to who came here as a kid with the dad, the grandfather, the family, it's a special place. Yeah. It really is.
So we can expect a few trains coming past. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Quakers Hill.
Right.
So the first 25 years of my life with mum and dad and my sister, until I moved to the hills, so Kellyville, Balcombe Hills. I've always been in sort of that northwest area. Loved it. School in Marion, Blacktown Boys before I went across to Westfields. But Western Sydney through and through, and love it. Still get back, all my mates are out there.
Cool.
But yeah.
And the Westfield sports you just mentioned, that's kind of in your area here now as the Bulldogs. Yeah. You're keeping that relationship strong, I bet.
Yeah, look, it's amazing school and has got a lot to do with where I'm at the moment. But I got invited back just before Christmas. Actually, Lukey Vella, who's one of our coaches here and works at the school, invited me back for a tour. Got to meet the new principal, a couple of familiar faces. Joe Kelly. And we had an amazing day. But I spent the whole time saying, well, that wasn't here when I was here. And we built that and that hall and this. But look, so much of it's still there. It's got amazing people. Kids who are coming through whose sport means so much to them. Get a really nice structure around them from an education point of view.
Sure.
Get the time for their training, but also, if the grades aren't there, you don't train, you don't play.
Well, I'm feeling that it had a real positive influence on you, because sport has always been in your life, and obviously there was a management, a corporate side of you, but now you're a CEO of a sporting franchise. But let's stay there at the influences at a school. You were at that school for track and field.
Yeah, correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but track and field is such a good foundation in a lot of ways, including the detail you look for. I know this from my own coaching. I know that a track and field background, and how I think and what I care about and how much detail I care about. Do you feel that in where you've gone in your work? Because you, as a track and field athlete, you have to be very disciplined, very every little detail counts. Has that had an effect on you professionally? Yeah,
interestingly, when I got recruited across the Westfields in year 10, I just love sport. From track and field, played a bit of footy, played soccer, anything I could get my hands on, whether it was summer or winter. And it was all around being with your mates and keeping healthy. I was always quick, hence the track and field background. So whatever I was playing, I was either on the wing or striker. But track and field, what it meant to me pre-Westfields versus during and then post, worlds apart in terms of the discipline and the commitment you needed, knowing that all the stats were there that said to make it in track and field, you've got to be in the absolute, you talk about 1%, the 1% of the 1% would make it through. Milliseconds, meters in throwing and jumping and all these things that was in your control. As long as you had the ability and the right people around you, you had the dream that you could get there. I didn't appreciate that pre-Westfield, and not that Westfields was the be-all and end-all, and this was just my path, but it was people believing in you but giving you the roadmap to say, you stick to this, you're a fair chance of improving, and who knows what can happen next. So combine that with the team environment of Westfields that you don't appreciate in track and field in general. It's a very individualist sport between you and your coach, maybe a couple of training partners. But our track team was 40, 50 strong. We'd travel, we'd train, we'd compete, we'd cheer. So it had that team environment, and not that you'd miss a session and let someone else down, but you almost had that feeling like you get in footy coming through. It was it was a special 3 years, and it's funny, at the end of my athletics career, you still feel part of it. I still do today. So it's it was a pretty special time.
I'm really big on listening how people have been influenced and good people in their life, and I can tell. I've known you for a long time. You then went and worked in rugby league. And the next time I stumbled across you was Parramatta Eels. You were working in marketing. You were
correct.
a junior in marketing. Underneath the great Stephen Edge.
Edgy. Good man.
So how did this journey, could you talk to us about that?
Very unique.
You just wanted anything in sport?
No,
Did you always think marketing?
No, so what happened when I finished high school, and with marks that you wouldn't gloat about, I was pretty disappointed in the sense that they weren't where I wanted them to be, but I got accepted into university on a scholarship that I actually declined in the end. So I was going to go to Western Sydney University, UWS at the time, in a marketing degree. But my mum at the time worked in a school, another school in the western parts of Sydney, and her career advisor actually mentioned to her, I think in the coffee room, that there were a couple of traineeships that weren't, in front of me when I was at Westfields. Anyway, that night she said, there's a couple of opportunities, why don't you come in and have a chat to him? One of them was at the Turf Club, one was, it was in an office somewhere, in a pretty cool, I think it might have been, funny enough, mining, randomly. They had a Sydney office, and then Parramatta. And at the time I didn't have all the love in the world for the Eels, I'll put it lightly. Growing up in the western parts of Sydney, supported Penrith, a bit of Manly, a bit of this. I was all over the place. Anyone that was winning titles at the time, that was me as a young football supporter. So I ended up having this interview and sat down with, I remember it like it was yesterday, Trish Cruz and Tony Zappia. And I just sold myself. I didn't know too much about the role. It was a membership assistant role at the Eels. I was 17, almost 18. So straight out of school as a young graduate.
So you started in membership? What year was this?
2001.
What a great year.
Yeah, actually, and ended up starting the start of 02. So Feb 02 I started with the Eels.
Trish, what a champion.
Yeah, they were great, and they believed in me.
Right,
They thought, this guy, we can teach, he's a good listener, he'll, and 2 years there in that traineeship role saw me into full-time employment after that, under Edgy in the sales team. So it's it was a great time, and it was it was down the road from me. I was in the catchment.
I want to ask you, what did you learn from Edgy, Stephen Edge? Great player, captain many grand finals, but he's now heading up a marketing team at the Eels, who were humming at the time. That I was there for 12 years, and that 01 year in particular, what a year, but some great people. I know what I know, why I think Edgy was brilliant in that marketing space, but I'm going to ask you, what lessons did you learn from him?
Edgy was, look, and I put my hand up, I didn't know too much about Edgy. Like you say it now, 5 grand final wins as a captain.
As captain. I should get him on here.
He's,
if you're watching.
Get on
Talk about a leader.
He is. And but you know what, he let me be me, but at the same time, his relationship skills, his ability to pull people together in the same direction as not just what he believes in is what's best for the club. Like he was a clubman. He'd come through, obviously Dragons into the Eels, and I don't think, apart from a few years I think he spent at Tyrrell's, He was heading the marketing and the sales team for a number of years, and everyone knew Edgy.
Yes.
Edgy looked after everyone. He just had this ability to keep you smiling. So it was this environment that you could always perform your best in. And this is a football club where you think performance generally obviously happens on the field and the training park and whatnot. Edgy brought a bit of that into an administrative team. So he's still doing what he does. You know, probably to a lesser extent, he's at the Dragons now.
I tell you what you've done here, mate. Honestly, like, I know what I think of Edgy.
Yeah.
And I know you just said relationships and you said connection. I know from a coaching point of view, and I know a leader like him who brings teams together. When he was a player, when you bring teams together and you have a connected team, the most connected team wins.
Yep.
Right? So he brought that and instilled that in you in a marketing sense that I had to ask you that question without me saying it.
Yeah.
Like, I know what makes Edgy so good and what made him so good as a player, and I've seen him in that workspace, but you just said it. And that's clearly influenced you in your role even now as a CEO.
Yeah.
Like, I feel what you're doing at this club is bringing really good people and getting this whole club.
Yeah, it's a proven method.
Yeah.
Year after year.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and sometimes there's a bit of luck involved, and the right person turns up at the right time to fill a certain gap in the organisation. But you need to process yourself to actually attract the right people. But you can't falsify. You bring the right person in, sell them the dream that doesn't exist. 2 weeks, they work it out.
Yeah.
It's not here. The job advert read well.
Yeah.
You sold the sizzle, but it's got to be there. But you're right. It's that thought process. But you've got to instill it in everyone.
Yeah.
There's no point one person having that belief.
But you will do it. You are doing it. Edgy instilled that in you. He instilled that in his teammates as a player.
Yeah.
He instilled that you're doing it, mate.
Yeah.
Like, I've already bumped into some people here today. Like, you can feel it. So.
Yeah. But you do it subconsciously. I don't think when you revert back to the plan, you go, okay, yeah, we're on track, and what we're trying to achieve is coming together.
Yeah.
But that's all you think about. You don't overthink it. You just get back to what you do, how you do it.
You keep valuing that, the results will take care of itself.
Yeah.
I know you know that, but to people listening, if you keep valuing that little lesson there we've learned, the results will take care of itself.
I hope so.
You know.
Yeah.
So you went this marketing route.
Yeah.
What happened to you after Parramatta?
I'd stayed there for a good period of time. Was it shortly after the 2009 grand final, when a lot of people departed the Eels. So it was a funny old time. The board got overthrown. See, Dennis Fitzgerald, big influence on my early career. He was the CEO at the league club and the football club for 25, maybe 30 years.
30 years.
The board was pretty much the same, but that whole, you take a bit from everyone. You do. You appreciate how they go about their role, what they've done, how they execute the plan, and you take what you need. And Dennis was very diligent. Parramatta was a steady ship back in those days, if you remember.
Yeah.
The title success wasn't there. 2009 came close. Speak to those guys who took the field that day. Hindsight, they deserved to win that one.
Yeah.
So I left shortly after the 2009 grand final, and funny enough, I'd graduated. So I'd studied for 13 or 14 years straight out of school. So by not taking that marketing degree, I ended up just doing a lot of study part-time.
Yes.
Cert 2 here, Cert 3 here, Cert 4 marketing diploma, marketing degree, postgraduate degree in sports admin, my MBA. It just didn't stop, but I did it at my pace.
Yeah.
I look back now and say, how, why? But I know why. It was to keep me focused outside work and keep me on track. But at the time I left the Eels, I think I just finished my undergrad degree, and I thought, everyone was telling me, you've got to get out of footy, you've got to see what's out there, you've got to challenge yourself here and there. And I had a really good opportunity with the Bulldogs at the time, so this is 2009, and with the Tigers.
Right.
So I met with Steve Humphries at Concord, I met with Todd and Dirk at the Dogs, but I had a really good opportunity at Coca-Cola.
Right.
In a marketing role that was brand new. They actually were developing it. It was in the trade marketing side, so a bit B2B. I took that on, really enjoyed the people and the Coke way. But after about a year, I needed to get back into footy. I actually called Todd and Dirk, and I said, remember that role? And they said, mate, that was a while ago. And I said, all right, well, I'm looking.
I'm ready.
So a couple of weeks later, I got the call. Dirk called me actually and said, it's on. Let's get you here. And it was
nothing beats sport.
Nah, it was.
If that's been your life.
I missed it. And I don't know what I missed about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything in particular. It wasn't the weekends and the wins, the losses. It was just the environment. And I'd spent enough time out of it to know that I needed to be back in it.
Yeah.
So it was. So that's how I departed the Eels. That's how I spent that sort of called the gap year and made some really good contacts. Mark Donkin.
Yeah, what a legend.
He was at Coke at the time.
You better be listening, Mark.
He'll be listening.
Yeah.
But great people, and I've still got people I speak to in that short period at Coca-Cola. Yeah. And it was pivotal because it sort of shot me back out and got me to the Dogs first time around, as I call it. So,
well, before we go to there, the first time around you're at the Dogs, you did mention Dennis Fitzgerald as a CEO. Now, sport is such a ruthless game, whether you're in the coaching game, the playing game, the admin game. If you're no good, you're spat out in 2 years. Yeah. If you're no good in this game. He lasted 30. We just mentioned he lasted 30. I had about 12 years in that club and so anyone that ever talks to me about him, you know, he's one of those controversial figures. There's always someone's got an opinion. Whatever. I'll always say exactly that. If you're no good, you don't last 30 years in this game. You know. So he had a very stable ship going on there for a long time.
He did.
And good people around him and
immaculately dressed at all times. It's funny, and things like that. You saw the staff. They dressed well. Like it was this pride in the club and how you presented yourself, and it was, you know, you weren't late. You're never late.
Never late.
If you're not early, you're late. Dennis's way. It was just these little things that you pick up along the way, and he kept it there. It was just the pressure on Parramatta. Still there, will never go away.
I found him very supportive. I'm thinking back, he just, whatever the staff or team needed to perform, he was very supportive,
he was.
Very honest. I used to do my own contracts with him. I never ever had an agent. I've always done my own deals, and I remember doing contract negotiations with him taught me lessons along the way that have helped me many years later. But he was brilliant.
He's a good operator.
So anyway, you came. It's not about me. Let's go back to you.
No, there's an open chat here. I like it.
Yeah. You came to the Bulldogs for the first time around in a commercial role.
Small team.
How many years?
I ended up spending 7 here.
Okay.
Yeah, first time around, almost 7. So I started in 10, finished in 17. Only 2. Maybe 3 roles that sort of merged into one, but I came in as a sales executive in a team that was, at the time, we were punching above our weight. But what I remember specifically at the time was, and a lot of people are seeing similarities in where the club is at the moment. They'd come out of I think it was 08, bottom of the table. 09, a nice run into the finals.
Prelim 09 against the Eels.
Against the Eels. So there was a bit of momentum. They'd recruited well. But there was still a long way to go. But commercially, I remember coming in and Edgy, you talk about Edgy's corporate book, hundreds of partners, hundreds. And that's what I was used to. So I came into the Bulldogs and it was, honestly, I remember it was 41, 42 partners. And I thought, okay, there must be that, you know, that list, where's the other list and where's the rest of the partners? And my boss, Dave, at the time, he said, no, we used to have a heap of partners. These are the ones we want. And they'd done not a cull, but they sort of worked through and said, look, let's just renew the businesses who are actually going to help us grow as a business. We're going to spend too much time on these businesses. And it wasn't as simple as going, you're out, you're in, you're out, you're in. It just organically got to that point where there were 42. We built it back up to over 150 in about 3 years. And it was the right bit, but we did it with the right base. Good businesses tend to like working with like-minded businesses, so they would bring referring businesses in. We had a program, we'd earn some money back if you brought some. I had one guy, he didn't pay for his partnership because every year he'd bring 5 new businesses in and he'd get his partnership. And that taught me a lot around, you know, if you, again, the people around you, whether that's external stakeholders, people inside the business.
Well done.
So we, and that was a shock because I remember
prospering from your first time.
Well, it's exactly right, and we don't do that, but I think that just happens over time. You build the group and you're heading in one direction. People just bounce out of it if they're not going to fit. So Yeah, that still sticks with me because I remember going home that night going, a bit different here, but it didn't take long. Like we did it the right way. We didn't take shortcuts.
Well, there's one. The shortcuts. I wonder if that's obviously, I started this chat around your detail as an athlete.
Yeah.
You take a shortcut or disrespect your sport in any way by taking a shortcut, it'll bite you on the arse, and
it will.
It's now in your mentality. It's just part of you.
Yeah.
Like there's no shortcuts.
Yeah.
Was there any inkling of, hey, I'm going to be a CEO one day at this stage in your career? Are you thinking?
Funny enough,
Are you aiming that high back then?
Yeah, I was, and I didn't know how, when, or where, but I had that in me, and it was more CEO because I guess that's the pinnacle of sports administration, particularly in clubland. But I just knew that I had to get and you can't know it all. You think you go, okay, there's, let's say 10 components of a football club, and you break it down, you can get a fair understanding, and that's where I feel like I'm at. I've got strengths that are far exceeding sort of the average in certain areas, and I've got areas I need to work on, but I make sure I've got the right people in those roles to upskill the business, but importantly me, so I've got a nice well-roundedness to running a football club. I remember having the same mentality back then. Is like, you don't know it all. Unless you're an absolute genius and you've got the capacity to, sleep 3 hours a night, get up and perform, you got to be realistic. So I knew I wanted to be. Funny enough, towards the end of my first stint at the Dogs, I thought, it is here, I just don't know when. But I didn't overthink it. It was just sort of it was the driver in me that didn't keep me up at night, but just kept the fire burning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, because there is no, or correct me if I'm wrong, there's no clear pathway. Hey, you want to be a CEO of a sporting club, do this.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. It's like coaching. The best coaches are lifelong learners. Always. Like you think, Wayne Bennett still, he is a great episode. My most listened to episode on our Audible is the Wayne Bennett episode. And I went and had dinner with him not so long ago, and he still tells me he's constantly learning and getting better.
Doesn't surprise me.
And he keeps getting better. So you just mentioned it in your world. You're now basically, you're the pinnacle of sporting admin, but you're still making sure you're constantly learning and developing in different areas. But can I go back to the challenges of there is no real pathway?
No.
Was there any hard times or any lessons that we could share?
You know what, the one, and it comes up in everyday life for every one of us, and particularly everyone listening to this podcast, would be you lose the passion for something in particular. And you can get it back, and that means you still have time in that particular role. Yeah. But when it doesn't come back, you've really got to ask yourself the question about what's next. Are you just wasting time? Are you just sort of waiting for something to pop up? And they're all okay. There's strategies behind moving into different roles, going on to learn something from someone else or another organisation. But for me, and I said this at the time, when I was at the club, I just lost the drive. And not for the club, I loved it, never stopped loving it. But where I was personally, I knew I had to go and do something else. I had to go learn and fail and challenge myself again. And it wasn't because, I remember looking back going, everything's pretty good here at the moment, commercially. I'd made sure there wasn't anything I hadn't done, and maybe find something else that would keep me motivated to drive. So if you look back at every part of my career, there was, and I know it happens, I talk to friends and family about their jobs, and you've got to keep that fire burning. And it's only then will you continue to learn, and you only learn by listening. And if you haven't got that drive, you put the blinkers on, you do your job, you go about it, you get a little bit more frustrated when you're enjoying something, you probably just roll with it. You find ways to learn and enjoy, but when you lose it, but then it's completely lost, you've really got to think about what's next. And that's for me, that was I learnt that early, but it was around roles. So in the Eels, I went from membership to marketing to media to sales to a broader sales role. All good. And then it was Coke, I had to challenge. And I only look back now and reflect that they were massive learning years.
All those roles have now helped you be a nice rounded CEO.
So how do you write that? You can't write that to get here.
You can't.
But maybe the message there is you've got to keep challenging yourself. You've got to keep hungry. The people around you make a big difference because they sometimes see things you don't.
Yeah.
and they can push you in the right direction or give you the right advice at the right time, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Being present.
I've just had this flashback.
Mm.
You've always, you just said, listen, you've always sought out people to learn from.
Yeah.
I remember you asked me to go to dinner once at Malone's restaurant in Balcombe Hills,
Yeah.
because you wanted to run past me an idea you had.
Yeah.
It was an event,
that's coming back to me now.
I was like, and I remember at the time, I was like, oh, you know, but part of influences in me have been like coaches that have given me their time.
Mm.
Like, I'll never forget things like standing on the pitch side at Man United and Alex Ferguson comes over and says, hi, I'm Alex. Do you have time for lunch? Like, so people like that have given me their time.
Yeah.
I remember at the time you wanted to go and have a chat. I was like, what's he want to talk to me for? You know, but then I was like, no, he's a great bloke. He's on a path.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, listen, give advice if I had any.
Yeah.
And now here I am. I'll probably be asking you for advice.
That's the way it all works, honestly.
But I do now. I'm just starting to think that has been in you from, you know, it's basically way back to the times at school where you're taking advice of smarter coaches, older athletes, you know, and then and here you are now. Fascinating there. I wanted to dip into, was there any lessons or any tough times? And you have made it clear there's no real clear pathway. Can I ask you what you see, what's your vision of this club, this Bulldogs club? What can you see is possible for this club?
Yeah.
If I ask you that, if you had to answer it and you had to really think boldly, think big, aim really high, what can you see is possible here?
I think there's two ways I would approach that question in terms of, and this club deserves the respect of a pretty broad answer for that one, because it's sort of been there, done that. It was so successful through the 80s. You know, came into the comp in the 30s when Belmore wasn't like it is today, right? So they had to fight for everything. Won a couple of premierships early, and then had this almost 40-year hiatus of just not only not making finals consistently, just no premierships, and you know, an area of Sydney that was so driven, had multicultural influences like no other area in Sydney, let alone the country. But football was always the cornerstone. It was what everyone looked at. So a club that unites, inspires, needs to be at the forefront of what we do. So off the field, driving community engagement. You know, you spoke about bringing the right people back who can further deliver the programs we're trying to deliver, like the Bulldogs can only do. And I always say that we're a club that is pretty unique, but if we don't double down on all of our strengths, we're just playing in a mix with everyone else. So we're just sort of turning up to schools, and if you know, we're getting a request here, we look at it and go, yeah, we can come out, or we can do it. We've got to do it differently, and we've started doing that. I can see it, and we've always push the envelope when it comes to our community engagement, because we're the only club in the country, and the Wanderers in the A-League, where the government used our clubs to communicate messages through the pandemic, because fans would listen to us, right? There was trust there. There was bilingual players who could come in and communicate certain messages in certain ways, but I see that as just so unique, right?
Yeah.
We had a pop-up vaccination centre here at Belmore, the only one in the state, at a football ground, because people trusted us. So we've got to get better at that, and I know we can, because we've got the people. We've done it before, we've just got to do it more consistently.
Yeah.
And then from a football perspective, the main reason we're here, right, is to build a club that has the most clear pathway to winning a premiership, and that's from a player, whether it be male or female at any age, to see the pathway all the way through, but to be part of something that starts when you're, 5, 6 years old, 14 if you come through our rep systems, both male and female now, which is so rewarding to see that we've got girls teams 100%. And a huge investment in female sport, well before we've got a team in the top tier. But it's building a system that produces Bulldogs. So you talk to any other team, and I've worked at Parramatta, is when the Bulldogs are firing, and you talk to Willie Mason and Bobcat and all those guys in the 04 era, is if you didn't lose to the Bulldogs, say if you beat them in those rare days where the dogs were toppling, 03, 04 was strong, you woke up sore the next day. You knew you played the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Like, it was that kind of dogs of war, tough mentality. That's got to start at an early age as a Bulldog. You put the jumper on, you play like a Bulldog. And I know Cameron, who is popping up at flag training, who's visited a few of the girls' sessions, who's talking to all of our coaches at any given time, because he can't expect to have the best talent coming through if he hasn't got an influence of what he wants as a high-performing player in the top tier. So as complex as that answer sounds, it's so simple in my head. It is a simple plan, but it's a challenging one to get everyone in the right place at the right time. But in this past 6 months, particularly the last 2 years since I've been back, I can see it.
Well, I can see it. I've been seeing a few things Bulldogs are doing, and you mentioned the word respect there, and then you rolled straight into, very organically, none of this has ever been scripted. You rode straight into respecting players of the early 1900s, this club.
Yeah.
And then you've respected the community, and then you've, like, the word respect there just come out in everything you said anyway. And even Cameron going down and doing stuff for these junior coaches, these junior teams, it's not just words that we want this Bulldog. He's showing respect to them, and that always pays you back.
Yeah, it does.
I'm just loving these trains that keep going past.
If you had the schedule, you could almost say that's the 10:39 in the...
It's a cameraman's nightmare, but it's very Belmore. But yeah, like, you've got a beauty there in your head coach and the people around him.
Yeah.
But you're actually, like, you never really mentioned the trophies then, like you did, but you didn't. Like, you actually said, we take care of all this stuff.
Yeah, that'll happen.
That'll happen.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that. If you break down that vision you have, obviously everyone wants to win. But break it down, and obviously you're already looking what could get in the way of that, like potential little roadblocks that may happen. Yeah. And you've got the people around to deal with it, but just back to that word respect that you said, like, you can feel that, can't you? Like, it can't just be a word.
No, it can't.
Which is a thing that I have seen across so many organisations. Sometimes you see words that are just on the wall, but they don't live it.
Yeah.
But the ones that live it, that genuinely live it, through their actions, like you just said, that's an action. Cam Serraldo going down to a junior team, that's action.
Correct.
Like, when people live it through their actions, I don't know what words are on your wall. I'm interested in doing a tour after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's there's some good little lessons there.
It's important. We've got a heap of work. Cameron, myself, Gus, a few of the execs have been working on that's pretty close to launching, and it's around the Bulldog way.
Yeah.
So it's every club has it in a roundabout way, and you can call it what you will. It can be words if they're only that, and they can be left on a wall, in a book, on a website. The key is to ensure it's as clear as possible. You've got examples, like you said there. What does that mean? What does commitment mean? What does accountability mean? Well, accountability means,
what does that look like?
And how do you live it? So it's, again, football clubs, business. You don't overcomplicate it. The moment you start having blurred lines between everything, you have people going on their own paths.
Well, here's some little lessons for the listeners. How do you deal with a tough conversation when you have to address a staff member or sack someone? Can't be easy.
No.
If you're going to make your way as a CEO, at some point you're sacking someone. How do you handle that?
Yeah, it's having the influence to change someone's life in the blink of an eye. No one looks at it and says how good. That's a great part of the role. But I think if you've set the right platform for the business and you've made everything pretty clear, there won't be too many surprises that pop up on both sides of the table. Look, I'm not perfect, no one in the business is, but more often than not, we know where we're heading and we know what we need to do. If you get blindsided by something, you've got to react, you've got to deal with it, you've got to act in the best interest of the club at all times.
Yeah.
Club is absolute first.
Yes.
So if you can keep that as a clear, guideline for any way I was to act or any way a staff member was to act, that you can call someone out on it. It's as simple as that. I think it's got to go both ways. I don't walk around here high and mighty thinking whatever I do is correct. I'm only acting in the best interest of the club, but if I'm not, call me out.
Yeah.
And it's got to go both ways. So I feel like if that's the basis to any conversation across a table, you can have that honest and direct convo.
If trust levels are high, those conversations that are tough shouldn't really be that tough.
That's right.
But I like to make sure, in amongst all this, people listening, there's little things they're going to come across, and the tough conversations. The reason they're called tough conversations because a lot of people find them tough. I've found myself that I don't have an issue with a tough conversation now. I might have very early. I don't have an issue with a tough conversation if it's aligned with the values. So let's say the words on the wall. That's the value.
Correct.
So I don't have an issue with saying, hey, is that in alignment with that? And if it's not, it's not really a tough conversation because it's not personal. It's not that you don't like the person. It's, is that behaviour, whatever it was, that action, is that in alignment with our values? And if it's not, let's get this sorted.
That's right.
And if someone doesn't want to work with those values, then they've got to go.
It's almost a self-policing model that you can, if you can't see it, then there might be a complete disconnect. But on the odd occasion that it's not, it's like, well, it's pretty clear. And it's, the outcome needs to be known either way. There can't be any ambiguity around the outcome of that conversation. You can't be left that it's going to get worse and fester. I feel like that's the key, is we can't leave this office until we're clear. Because then we can get on with it and we know exactly what we're wanting to do. You're here for a reason, I'm here for a reason, and it's to unite and inspire a community.
There you go.
Are we doing that? Like, it's pretty clear.
Do you think that behaviour unites people or not? Like, that's an easy chat to have.
It is.
Do you think what's happening there, is that inspiring the community?
That's right.
It's an easy chat to have. Okay, communication. On field, it's the biggest thing. We mention it a lot. The most connected team wins because the most connected team defends the best defensive team wins. I say it a lot. And the coach you've employed, massive believer in that stuff. Communication in all that, talking in that, like talking to the person next to you when you're playing a team sport, or but in a business sense, tell me how you value communication, because the most connected team wins on the park, but I'm feeling the most connected team.
100%.
Where do you place a value on communication, and is there any lessons along the way? Are you getting better at it? Were you always good at it?
No, look, you can always improve. You can always, particularly at the end of every day, week, you can always have a quick snapshot back. The week, the day that was, could we have done better in this space? We had a meeting earlier today, we did this, or this got cancelled. A million things get thrown at you in a week in rugby league. To reflect is super important. But the one thing I'm pretty proud of at the moment is the group of people. So we've got 50 or so people in the admin side of the business. It's pretty well resourced. Probably 30 odd when I started. So we've recruited really hard. We've filled gaps left, right and centre. The more people you have and the quicker you bring them in, the more difficult lines of communication can be. People are busy, particularly this time of year. You've got X amount of weeks to kick off. You don't get this time back. Pressures are building. Communication is far more important, but you need to have structures in place that allow that. So the teams, like any team, any workplace across the land, you can see communication breakdowns in marketing and sales, events and finance, and it always comes down, as long as you've got the right people, to communication. There's never people trying to be conniving in the background. Rarely, right? It is communication, and it's always a misunderstanding around someone's roles and responsibilities and how they may be misaligned or perceived to be misaligned. They rarely are. It's just comms.
So you have to invest time in this. People have to know you value this. It's the same on the field. If ever there's a defensive error and the team gets scored against, nearly always there was some sort of miscommunication going on, or lack of communication.
Exactly the same.
Lack of. So you clearly value it, and you're answering these words, these questions so well for the people listening. Communicating with fans, like you clearly, I see it in you, I hear it, I've watched some of your stuff. You give so much respect to this community. Do you have a bit of a plan on how you communicate? Because, I mean, you've got some fans that they want to know everything, what's going on.
We've got, our communication plans are pretty...
By the way, you're doing some brilliant stuff in the digital space.
Yeah, we've...
Talk about communicating with fans, how your team's training.
Improving very light years.
I watched something
the
recently.
Kennel,
The Kennel.
First episode.
Yeah.
I think second
Very
episode
impressive.
drops very soon. So it's, look, so communicating on that level is simply showing 500,000 fans what we're doing. Not many words were said in that around, hey guys, now what we're doing here is this, and this exercise is it. We just showed them.
Yeah.
You can work it out.
Yeah.
The clear message of episode 1 was connection.
Yes.
Brand new group of guys, a heap of new faces, coaching team from all walks of life.
What about what Andrew Ryan pulled off?
Connecting.
That
Day. He put most of that stuff together. So
that was impressive.
The driver of that day was connection.
If you haven't seen it, anyone listening, YouTube, it's called The Kennel.
Yeah.
The Bulldogs channel.
Yeah.
I think it's a 12-minute episode.
Yeah, 12 minutes. There's, I think, 5 episodes in total.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And, so that form of communication, super unique, but you're talking 100,000 hits on YouTube, which for some might not be a lot. For us, we're brand new on that platform.
Yeah.
It's showing that that's what the fans want. Versus the fans, and Bulldog fans in particular, they're a proud group of supporters. I'm not saying other teams aren't, but we're a pretty avid group of supporters who will stick up for their club at all times. No matter what happens, you're a Bulldog supporter and this is the badge.
Yeah.
At a barbecue, at a gathering, at this, don't say anything bad against the Bulldogs because they'll have something to tell you why that's incorrect or this is what we're doing. And so for us, it's arming Bulldogs fans with the truth.
Yeah.
This is what we're about. Something gets written, we're doing this, we're spending here, and this is this, and whatever. No, we'll tell you exactly what we're doing. So we're very good at the members comms in terms of this is what we're about. Look, we can get better. We can over communicate in certain areas, and we will. But I look at it like that. If we do some good things, it's not about us getting the top of the grandstand and saying how great we are. It's simply to arm Bulldogs fans to continue to be proud of the club.
Mate,
simple.
So impressive your answers, but the content you're delivering, but I had an experience with Bulldog fans, right?
So many people did.
Let me tell you what, sorry, I had an experience with some of your fans.
Okay.
A lot of your fans know that I've worked for rival clubs.
Yeah.
And the podcast is another thing I do, but a lot of your fans know me as someone that was at Penrith or or whatever. But I did the podcast with Andrew Ryan, Bulldogs legend, very close friend of mine who I was a part of his career early on.
Yeah.
Followed the same path as you, started Eels, ended up Bulldogs legend. But anyway, I got contacted by a couple of fans who gave me so much respect and actually shared not so much the YouTube, we're pretty new to the YouTube stuff, but the audio version of Andrew Ryan's podcast went off because they actually respected that I was trying to bring them some content of this legend, and they love him. They must love him. So, I'm hoping that those 100,000 people that watched your one will share this.
Yeah,
version.
why not? Look, who knows? It's funny with that day. Sometimes you don't overthink something.
Yeah.
If the content's there, that'll look after itself.
Yeah.
No point getting up and chapter 1 and chapter 2 and all these things. This was just put out there. The guys did an amazing job. Yeah. Amazing job.
Because you give so much respect. You mentioned the word multicultural. Talk to me a little bit through that. You have
the most multiculturally supported club in the country.
Is it?
We've got
the
stats.
That's
let alone
fact.
Being in.
That's fact.
It's fact.
Yeah.
Let alone being in Canterbury Bankstown, which has over 150 nationalities. You've got Campsie, about a kilometre that way, 17 times more likely to speak Vietnamese than anywhere else in the country.
Yeah.
You've got Roselands over here, which has changed over the decades immensely. Lakemba, not far behind it. Ramadan nights, once a year we head down there.
Yeah.
It brings almost 100,000 people from all over the city into one street in Lakemba to celebrate Ramadan.
Right.
The strip in Belmore, it closes down. Unfortunately, we haven't played finals in a few years, but every final series, every night leading in, safety first, it packs everyone in there. You've got Bankstown, you're talking, and even in our supporter group, in terms of our members, 44% are from non-English speaking backgrounds.
And even in your team?
In our team.
We've got,
and we're doing a piece now with multicultural round, fast approaching round 3, which is going to be here at Belmore against the Tigers. The 30th year anniversary of a multicultural round here in 93.
Wow.
So we're going to do something pretty special. And because we can call out our members going, tell us your background, tell us a little bit about you, how'd you get here, why the Bulldogs? And the stories can be a book that thick that would fly off the shelves. Like, it's just different, you know?
You know how you did, like the boys you had, you know, you got the Fox, you know, like really top level respected in the Indigenous community, and he would have shared his and did the dance, and you had Lebanese stuff. And you had, what did Cam Serraldo do? Because he's got Italian in him.
I didn't see.
He didn't see his?
He definitely got involved in all the others.
I saw him banging drums.
Yeah, face paint.
Yeah, face paint.
Yeah.
If you want to like have a little multicultural day with your head coach you've just employed, I tell you what to do. Go and buy the best salami, Italian, real stuff. Go and get real, and get him a really nice bottle of red. Probably give Mortimer's Wines a ring. And sit down and have a red bit of salami, and
that'd nail it. Yeah.
Well, so again, your multicultural stuff. He's got Italian background.
He has played and coached.
Yeah, you've got everything at this club.
It's super unique, and it's just stay tuned. Round 3, we're going to celebrate it like never before.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might come back.
It's going to be pretty special.
Where will that game be?
Here, round 3.
Here?
Yeah, live, Channel 9. So multicultural round is round 3 comp wide.
Right.
So we're one of the last games on the Sunday here. So yeah, I won't get too far into the plans, but it's
Can you get me a seat back where I used to sit?
Yeah.
When I used to watch Terry Lamb play. Just
well, you've got to be a member to get those seats. They're good seats.
But I know you. Like, is it one of those connection things?
Short of a member not being able to make it, this place will be. We're hoping for 18,000. We put 17,000 in here.
Look at you. You're still selling
memberships. No. Well,
you're still selling.
You get them while you can.
Mate, honestly, I love chatting to you, mate. I love following your journey personally.
Thanks, mate. Likewise with you.
Knowing you for a long time, I love seeing what you're doing. But the feeling I get coming in here, the people I've already bumped into, the people you're surrounding yourself with and what you value, this place is going up.
Well, I'm glad you can see it, mate. And look, anytime, honestly, maybe I can find that seat for you.
Yeah, please.
When you get here.
Please.
We're here for round 22, so maybe as well.
Thanks heaps, mate.
See you, mate. Thank you.
Some of the best learning you will ever do will be talking and listening over a beautiful glass of red, which brings me to thanking our sponsors at Mortimer's Wines. Mortimer's are a family-owned vineyard in the beautiful region of Orange, New South Wales, Australia. Their historic 150-year-old schoolyard building that is now the cellar door, it provides a great atmosphere to taste their fine wines. Visit mortimerswines.com.au.